Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming out tonight to learn about the Blue Zones Project and what it means for our community. My name is Suzanne Pichetti Johnson. I'm the program manager for Avenues to Wellness. We are a program of the Frank R. Howard Foundation, and this is our speaker series. And today I am very happy to introduce the Blue Zones team, led by Executive Director Tina Tyler O'Shea. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. And I want to give a special thank you out to the Howard Foundation and Avenues to Wellness for serving our beautiful community and the North County. And it really is an honor to be here tonight as part of your speaker series to share the Blue Zones Project, community-led well-being initiative with a focus on transforming environments to help make the healthy choice the easy choice for everybody. As Suzanne said, I'm Tina Tyler O'Shea. I am very fortunate to be the team leader for our local project.
Yeah, my name's Ryan Vaness, and I am the organization lead for our Blue Zones project here in town, and I work specifically with a lot of our restaurants, grocery stores, work sites, and schools.
Awesome, thank you. My name is Michelle Duarte. I'm the Senior Event and Office Specialist for our Blue Zones team. I do a lot of the event coordinating and also admin as well.
Thanks. I'm Lucy Bartholomew, and I am our public policy advocate.
And you'll see in the photo, Azucena Chavez Huerta, our engagement lead. She was not able to be with us tonight. She is practicing one of our Power 9 principles, Family First, this evening. A special thank you to Adventist Health Mendocino County for their vision and generosity in bringing Blue Zones Project to our community. So we are one of over 75 Blue Zones Project communities now across North America. We have access to sister projects who have paved the way, sharing best practices and lessons learned. We have access to national policy experts at no cost to our community. And our most important resource, though, is our local community. We do this work with our community together. So studies show that 80% of longevity is determined by lifestyle and the environment, with only 20% determined by our genes. Blue Zones Project's focus is to engage individuals in activities that change mindsets and habits in lasting ways, and to engage organizations and decision makers to address policies, systems, and environments that support well-being. Because personal choice is only one aspect of our decisions that we make every day. Our environment plays a very important role.
So as Tina mentioned, our work is a community well-being initiative, and it was inspired by the work of National Geographic fellow Dan Buettner. So Dan Buettner did a 10-year-long study that was published in National Geographic, where he researched the places in the world where people live the longest, healthiest lives. And he dubbed these places the Blue Zones, which is how we got our name. Actually, anecdotally, blue, the color blue, was selected because when he first found these places, he used a blue marker and he circled the places on a map, and they said, what should we call these places? And they started colloquially calling them the Blue Zones, and it stuck. Just a little bit of trivia. He has published a series of New York Times best-selling books, and his work published in National Geographic is still the third best-selling issue of National Geographic to ever be published. Okay, so the places around the world where these original Blue Zones are, within these communities, it's not necessarily that the people living there have better access to health care or have comparable socioeconomic statuses. They're varying geographies, and the makeups of the populations are different. However, the environments within these communities are set up, and the systems are set up so that people living within them have access to healthy choices and healthy lifestyles. The communities are set up to make it easier for people to make healthy choices. So by the end of this presentation, you'll have a clearer understanding of how our work emulates the principles found in those communities and applies them to places where people live an average lifespan so that we too can have a healthy choice be the easiest choice. So let's talk a little bit about these original blue zones, which, as I mentioned, are diverse and distinct and each have their own individual characters and also have these shared principles. So the first one to look at is about 125 miles off the coast of Italy. This is a gorgeous island of Sardinia, and it was the first identified blue zones. In the population of Sardinia, 10 times more healthy centenarians live within Sardinia, Italy, than in North America. So it is the greatest concentration specifically of male centenarians in the world. That's 1 out of every 250 people born in Sardinia will live to be over 100 years old, will become a centenarian. Comparatively, only 1 out of 6,000 people born in the United States live to be over 100 years old. So what is it about Sardinia, Italy? A lot of things. It's a gorgeous place, as you can see. So the cultural makeup and the geographic makeup of Sardinia, Italy, it is in this highlands region, and many of the people living there are shepherds. It's a shepherding culture. And folks in Sardinia are very used to moving their bodies naturally through their work and their play. They also eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and very little meat. Veganism and vegetarian is not necessarily commonplace there as a shepherding community. However, the average person eats meat at about a portion the size of the palm of your hand or a deck of cards. They enjoy it sparingly. So on the totally other side of the world is Okinawa, Japan. So this is the second blue zone that was identified, and this region is home to the world's longest living women. The Okinawan longevity profile is amazing because of how low the disability rates are, especially and including into the senior years of life. And also people there live on average for 7 years longer than in the United States. Some statistics from Okinawa: there are 5 times as many centenarians overall than there are in the United States. There's 1/5 the rate of breast cancer and colon cancer compared to the United States, and 1/6 the rate of cardiovascular disease. And these last two findings, the low rates of disease, are pretty staggering when you consider that 80% of Americans over the age of 60 will develop one of these diseases in their lifetime. We encourage folks to have close connections within their communities and maintain close friendships. Okay, so studies show that isolation and loneliness is harmful to your health, is measurably harmful to your health. So 20 years ago, the average American had 3 close friends, but today that number is reported to be 1.5. So according to a press release by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in May 2023, the United States Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, released a new Surgeon General advisory calling attention to the public health crisis of loneliness, isolation, and lack of connection in our country. Even before the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, approximately half of U.S. adults reported experiencing measurable levels of loneliness, and disconnection fundamentally affects our mental, physical, and societal health. In fact, loneliness and isolation increase the risk of individuals developing mental health challenges in their lives, and lacking connection can increase the risk of premature death to levels comparable to daily smoking. So that is a direct report from the Health and Human Services Agency. So the Okinawan culture is committed to having close social networks. The word that we use for this is a Japanese word called Moai, and Moai means small groups of people who gather for a shared purpose. In Okinawa, these groups, like you see here, these Moais, are often formed at a young age, and those friendships, those relationships maintained through people's lifespans. The women pictured here have been in this Moai for 97 years. It's a long time. Their average age of the women in this photo, the average age of these women is 101 years old. and they're very good friends.
All right. So what we get to do now is we get to literally travel across the Pacific Ocean going east. And we actually have a blue zone located here in the United States, even here in California even, which is located in the metropolitan area of Los Angeles. And that community is actually called Loma Linda. And they actually have a really large concentration of Seventh-day Adventists in that community. And so it's a very faith-centric kind of community where they've learned to be able to support one another kind of through the journey of life. And most of those individuals eat a predominantly plant-based diet and refrain from drinking alcohol. That's kind of what they've been known for throughout the years. And I would like to share a quick little story. I actually had the opportunity of meeting this gentleman. This gentleman is Dr. Wareham. And Dr. Wareham is actually a cardiologist down working for Loma Linda University. And he actually had the opportunity to really showcase his true sense of purpose and really be able to showcase why that community is so known for purpose. And throughout one of the days, he said, I'd like to build a privacy fence around my house. And so, he goes and gets some bids throughout the community and realizes that it's going to cost quite a bit. And at this time, he was 97 years old, and he's like, I can do this myself. So he goes and buys all the tools needed, all the supplies, and is building his own fence at 97 years old. And the story goes on that he actually ended up in the OR at the end of one of those days. And it's not by what you think. He actually was going in to assist one of the physicians that was there. At 97, he was no longer the lead physician, but he was able to go in and support some of those physicians during one of those surgeries. And talk about purpose. He knows exactly why he was put on this earth, and to be able to continue on with that, it's so inspiring. And it's just so exciting to be able to share part of that story of Dr. Wareham.
So later, Dan found that there were the last two blue zone areas, and that's Nicoya Peninsula over in Costa Rica and also Icaria, Greece. So Dan spent time in these areas to find out why they live longer, happier, healthier lives. From these 5 areas, he found some common traits in how they ate, their right outlook, and their overall lifestyle. His research produced several best-selling books that you see here on the screen, and he's also considered a longevity expert on the Oprah Winfrey Show, TED Talks, CBS, NPR, and Good Morning America.
And so Dan and his researchers found 9 commonalities between all these communities. Some of the things that were mentioned earlier, we call them the Power 9. The people in these original blue zones move naturally throughout their day. They have a strong sense of purpose. They eat from their gardens and other local sources. And they have a strong connection with family, be they blood or chosen. A connection to a faith, regardless of denomination, or a civic-based organization. Rotary, for example, is a local example. And so in the original Blue Zones areas, residents make healthy choices because those choices are easy, even unavoidable. It's in their environment. So instead of focusing just on the individual, we focus on optimizing the environment, more specifically the life radius, that area where you spend 90% of your time. And in that life radius, we focus on people, places, and policy.
So yeah, we're going to jump into impacting people. Blue Zones Project engages people in activities such as attending story speech presentations like what we have today, participating in MOAs, attending a purpose workshop, and volunteering. These activities help change mindsets and habits in lasting, healthier ways. And so here is our progress we have done so far in our project. It has been very inspiring to be a part of these events.
We have story speeches, Moais, we had walking groups, also purpose Moais, cooking demonstrations. We've been over at Grocery Outlet, we've been over at the Mendocino College, and getting those partnerships with other agencies has made this such a huge success. And purpose workshops and volunteering. So Moais, Lucy was explaining what a Moai is, but the walking groups, the potluck Moais and purpose Moais, these are our activities. And so these are 10-week programs. We meet once a week for 10 weeks. And also you have the option of choosing the people, the place, the time, and the day. And, I've been supporting and also been included into these Moais. For instance, last year I started a Moai over at the Willits Rotary Club, and I was a new member. I didn't really know anyone, so I was like, you know what, let's just try this out. I want to see if this works. So I started the Moai, had everyone sign up. We met in front of Brick House Coffee, 8 a.m. on Fridays, and it was such a huge success. We got to talk, and we got to talk about what's going on, what volunteering opportunities, and it was just so great. We went in as strangers and we came out as friends. And I would like to say we started back up this year, and now we added a little extra credit. We bring little trash bags to pick up trash on the main street. So it's been really cool. And also over in Laytonville, I started a walking Moai with Laytonville Healthy Start, and that's been very inspiring. We had a huge group. We started with 18 people, and it's growing to 25 people because we're really including the family, like family first, And it's been really cool to see people grow and, be empowered and encouraged to walk. Some people are like, I don't feel like, walking today. It's like, okay, just 5 minutes of walking. Or also there's this one person, they had challenges of, meeting their steps, their goal steps. And ever since we launched this earlier this month, they have tripled their goal setting. So it's just been really cool to see everyone. We have children, parents, grandparents to participate, and it's just been really cool. And then also volunteering. So we've volunteered in some events. We have the Sound Garden Giving Tuesday over in Ukiah. And then we also worked with Ukiah Valley Trail Group. And earlier this year, I volunteered for the Ukiah Trail Group. I don't know any vocabulary in trailing at all, and so it was just funny to be a part of it. And we had this one person that was an expert in native plants, so I'm working out a lot, and walking to these trails, and this one person was like, oh, you need to do this. I'm like, I hand them a tool, and they're like, no, that's not what we're talking about. So I learned some vocabulary, and also learned about plants, how to work out, and it was just really cool to make new friends. And, that was one of my barriers going hiking in our local trails, because I don't want to get lost, And so being a part of this group, or even just volunteering once or twice, I know the area, I know where the trails are at, so I feel safe. I could bring my family there and show off what we've done. So it's been really fascinating.
All right, so places. So this is where my role comes in, and I just really want to kind of share with you all, it's really the importance of why places, why organizations, work sites, restaurants, why all of these are so important. The work that Michelle and Azucena and the team's doing with our individual community members is really, really important. When you also look at it through the lens of, where are we, for the most part, in our time throughout the day at the most? It tends to be at work. It tends to be at school. It tends to be at these locations that we kind of tend to be centric around. And if we can create an environment in those spaces where we're just prompted to make our tagline, the healthy choice, the easy choice, we're going to be given that fighting chance to really make a positive impact. And that's why it's so important for us to really work with our local organizations. And so the 4 primary organizations that we tend to work specifically with, and some of the statistics that we're trying to shoot for, which I won't dive too deep into that, first of all is working with our schools. We all know the value of working with our students and being able to positively influence, some of those health choices that they make in life, right? The importance of working with our restaurants. When we go out to eat, how are we able to be prompted into making healthy decisions when we're looking through the menu or our times there? We're looking through the idea of grocery stores. How many of you all have gone shopping when you're hungry? Is it easier or is it hard to make healthy choices? It's really difficult to make healthy choices. But when you walk into that grocery store and it's prompting you to make these healthy choices along the way, it makes it that much easier, whether it's a healthy checkout lane, even at the last piece of your time there. And then the last piece is that work site. And I want to do a quick shout out to Spare Time Supply here in Willits. They actually, Andrew has said, hey, I want to work with Blue Zones and try and create an atmosphere of health and wellness within our organization. And it's just so exciting to see that movement. And so I want to share a few stories with you all. So one of our work sites that we've been closely working with is North Coast Opportunities. And they are doing just a phenomenal job within the community to create opportunities for community members to be able to thrive. And one thing when we were chatting with their CEO, Patty Bruder, she said, I want to be able to take care of my staff as well. And one of the opportunities that we really like to share is our Purpose Workshop. And we are so proud of this. North Coast Opportunity hosted the second largest Purpose Workshop, as far as we know, ever in our Blue Zones project history over the last 15 years. And so they had 180 employees, really just being able to dive back into, what are my gifts? What are my personal values? What is that sense of purpose that I have that I can really implement back into my work, into my life, and really increase that sense of value, and for other people to be able to benefit from that as well throughout the community. And in that space for North Coast Opportunities to create for their staff was just such an honor to be a part of. Really, really fun for sure. What are we doing with schools? The importance of working closely with our students to create this atmosphere of excitement, of wonder, of application of health and wellness is really, really important. And we were able to partner up with Mendocino County Office of Education, and they hosted an event over at Mendocino College, and they had their STEAM program over there, which it used to be STEM, but it's now that science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. And being there to really have that conversation with family members and with the students and challenging them to really engage in these ideas and to implement the science and things. It's just so much fun to see that awe and that wonder. We have a bicycle over there that we took that has a little generator built in, and they got to have some fun with the practical application of that. So the next piece here is restaurants. And we're so excited to share that our very own, we have 2 very own restaurants here in Willits that are already approved restaurants. We have Davi's Kitchen and 101 Burgers. She has just hit the nail on the head regarding providing healthy options for our community and easy to read menus so that you know how to make those healthy choices as well. And it's just so important, but I want to showcase Brick House and Tom Mann's journey in creating this atmosphere where I think many of you have been in there, where you walk in and it's just kind of this family-like atmosphere where you want to spend time with family, with friends. And I remember talking to Tom, and he said specifically, if only these walls could talk. And I love that. The business that's been done, the tears that have been shed, the support and love that's been shown within that space is just so valuable. And so that's why working with these organizations is so, so vital, especially in the restaurant world. And the last one that we really focus in on is, again, the grocery stores. And the one that we're really excited about is partnering with Harvest Market over in Fort Bragg. They are doing such a fabulous job of really creating a sphere of influence where when people first walk in, they're just looking at healthy options. And I know that Mariposa Market here locally does a good job with that as well, but it's having a robust produce section. It's having options that really jump out at you that say, hey, wow, these are healthier options. And like I mentioned, kind of that checkout lane model, right? The idea of if we're kind of standing in line for 5 or 10 minutes, I know I've reached for that Reese's peanut butter cup in the past. But if they're not there, jumping at you and you have some nuts or some fruit there, you might like, oh, okay, I can just grab that healthy snack. And that's what it's all about. It's just trying to create that opportunity for people to be successful. Yeah, thank you.
The third area that we focus on is impacting policy. So the 3 policy priorities for our team is tobacco, food, and the built environment. So we'll get into that a little bit more in a minute, but what we've found is that this is a lasting way to have an impact on a community. If something is codified, is put on the books, that sustains an impact on our community. The decisions that your leaders make does have an impact on the life that you live. If you're living in a community or visiting a community, you will be impacted by the decisions of the decision makers. So it is our role to encourage those decision makers to be making choices that support the health and longevity of the folks living in Willits, for example, and elsewhere in Mendocino County. Also, the work that we do is short-lived. We're a short-lived project. We're here impacting community for about 5 years. And the work that we do is all about creating and supporting systems that will continue and thrive and sustain after our 5-year-long program operates. So how do we know that it's working exactly? The numbers that you see here, these are the targets that we're attempting to reach. This is how we, check things off going down the line. And what's relevant here is that, the accountability that we have to ourselves, to our funders and our reporters, and also to folks in the community. So just so you know, as we're moving through things, we are reporting on it. But what I really care about in this slide is the fact that it demonstrates that, oftentimes when I say the word policy, I bet folks in here, and maybe it's partially because I was using that jargon a moment ago, but I bet a lot of folks think about laws and regulations and ordinances and resolutions, and that is a part of what our policy work is, but it's more than that. For one thing, we're never satisfied if a policy gets written and it's on paper and it's filed and it's put on a shelf to gather dust. Nobody wants that. And so part of our work is helping these policies get adopted, and then what really inspires us is supporting communities in implementing those policies. So for example, if a community accepts a complete streets policy, then we can offer support to help them to implement those changes. Likewise, we support in building capacity. What that means is helping partner organizations to make it easier for them to do their job. So that could be through supporting with fundraising efforts or grant writing or providing technical assistance or other administrative support. And then lastly, second to last week, we also do demonstration projects where we'll do like a pop-up of what would it look like if there was a park here? What would it look like if this street was redesigned to prioritize walkability? So, we can come in and do a demonstration project for a day to get the community centered around a shared vision of something. The last thing is vocab word that we use, which is marquee project. When we say marquee project, what that means to us is a real world manifestation of our work. So a marquee project could be a community garden or a road redesign that you can see and feel and it exists in the real world. You know, a trailer that is rebuilt to be a mobile farmers market has been a project that some other communities have done. One of our marquee projects was helping to plan and manage the North Coast Farmers Convergence, which was just last week, and it was a really good event. So anyway, just a little vocab for you and broaden the definition of policy. This is a little bit more detail on all of the great things that we have done so far, and in fact, I just mentioned the Farmers Convergence, and I'm sorry that I did not update this slide to reflect that. But point being, we've done a lot of good things, and none of this is ever done in a vacuum. What I'm really proud of in our work is that everything that we do is collaborative. We have these sound and strong partnerships in the community, and that's integral to our work as we're working towards developing systems of sustainability. We're helping folks in the community, organizations in the community, grass tops and grassroots leaders, and they're supporting our work too as we have a shared vision. So some of those partner agencies that I really want to shout out for their incredible partnership is, of course, North Coast Opportunities, as we've already mentioned in this presentation, Ukiah Valley Trail Group, the cities of Willits, Fort Bragg, and Ukiah, the Instilling Goodness and Developing Virtue School, the Fort Bragg Alleyway Art Project, Round Valley Indian Health Center, and for the sake of not turning this into me reading the dictionary, I'll stop there as I highlight those organizations and just know that this community is filled with incredible people doing incredible work, and we're so grateful to be able to partner with them. The work that we do impacting the built environment, what this means is, the physical infrastructure that surrounds us, that we live in and move our lives through. So the environment around us informs healthy habits more than willpower alone. This has been proven and documented again and again that, for example, research has found that putting your walking shoes in plain sight leads to a measurable increase in the amount of times that you grab those shoes and hit the pavement and go out the door. So considering that sort of example, the way that we work with the built environment, that our philosophy around that is if you make the environment enticing, easy, accessible for people to live in a healthy way, make it exciting and fun for someone to go on a walk through a beautiful new pathway in town, someone to ride their bike or walk to work or roll to work however they want to, that supports in folks making healthy choices more than willpower alone. So in our built environment work, we advocate for complete streets. Complete streets means streets that are designed for all users, including cars and combustion engine, well, I guess we're beyond combustion engine now. Anyway, cars, or electric vehicles, I could say, as well as pedestrians, bicyclists, any rolling human-powered mode of transportation. And also, so that's complete streets, as well as access to all forms of active transportation by trail systems, not rail systems. Love a good train, but that's not what I'm talking about. As well as access to parks, green spaces, and the outdoors for recreation and for transportation. So in our food policy arena, we're guided by principles of food sovereignty. So the idea of food sovereignty is an extension of the idea of food security. So with food security, it means that folks have enough food to get by. There are enough calories, they will survive. Food sovereignty is a higher standard than food security. That means that not only do people have enough food, but also that it's nutritionally dense It's culturally relevant, it's delicious and enticing, and also that it's grown, raised, or cultivated in a way that doesn't make anyone's life worse, that it's the way that it was grown doesn't use harmful practices. So a lot of the work that we do impacting food policy is through the Mendocino County Food Policy Council, which was around, it was actually one of the earliest food policy councils in California. The Mendocino County Food Policy Council has a very impressive legacy, and it was unfortunately fallow for a couple years during the pandemic, and we had the opportunity to re-sow the seeds of success in trying to come up with a gardening metaphor.
I like it.
By taking the helm of the Food Policy Council for now building capacity for that organization and partnering with some other organizations such as the county to keep that as a successful coalition. The final area of our policy priority areas is impacting tobacco. This was something that in my career, I hadn't focused on tobacco. I had a background in built environment and food, and I was so taken aback and shocked by a lot of statistics that I found, but one being that Mendocino County is per capita more addicted to nicotine than almost any other county in California. A statistic from 2020 was that it was the second most addicted county in California. I hadn't realized that before seeing that, and it surprised me. Another statistic that startled me was that for 3 generations in a row, people were less and less addicted to nicotine. You know, it was really, we were winning the war on tobacco, as they say. And this young generation, people ages 18 to 25, are now the first out of those 4 generations where young people are more addicted than their parents, and that trend is only progressing. So the work that we do is through the Mendocino County Tobacco Prevention Coalition, and we advocate for updates to tobacco retail license ordinances. This has been the historic place where tobacco reform has occurred. For example, when the age changed to 21, that first happened in municipalities and counties. Actually, the first one was in California. They said, in this county, you have to be 21 to purchase. Everyone thought they were crazy. And in 2021, that was finally adopted as a national standard. So we work to update tobacco retail license ordinances in Mendocino County. And this year, the county as a whole, Willits and Ukiah have all fresh state-of-the-art tobacco retail license ordinances that eliminate the sale of flavored products and invest in preventative health measures for, or preventative work to ensure that kids don't have access to nicotine. Tobacco cessation services are sometimes inaccessible to folks, and the organization that we work for actually does offer a free application, a free phone app. It's called Craving to Quit. So if that's something that you're looking for support in, you can just go into your app store and look for Craving to Quit. It is a free app, and it's provided by ShareCare, which is our employer.
So it's all about helping individuals live longer, better, happier lives. Another way to that we engage with individuals is our Live Longer, Better Rewards program. This is a comprehensive program that uses the ShareCare app to incorporate Blue Zone's Power 9 principles to support your well-being journey wherever you go. So our reward program is broken down by quarters with a Power 9 theme for each one. We are currently, as you see right here, we're currently in the Connect, and we'll start the Move Naturally quarter July 1st. You can set goals and track progress, learn the Blue Zone's principles, join community challenges, complete and track all activities, and you can win Blue Zones merchandise. You can even earn additional entries for the merchandise by attending the Blue Zones Project community events. Next slide, we can see our upcoming events right here. So there's a lot happening, as you can see. Exciting events. We have purpose workshops, cooking demos, all the way up to August. And so the event that you attend, you'll receive additional entry to win Blue Zones merchandise.
And we are now at our question and answer section.
How
Excuse
can
me.
the community be involved? Say I'm sitting at home watching this on, my television, and I want to be involved. How can I get involved?
I'd be happy to ask that as well. Now, hope you're doing okay now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had a
Yeah, first of all, definitely check out some of our, it can either be social media, whether it's through our Facebook, Instagram, you can definitely follow us there. And we'll always be posting, what is that next Moai that's going to happen, whether it's a cooking Moai, a potluck Moai, whether it's going to be a walking Moai, purpose workshop. We'll always be updating that as we go along. If you want to email us, feel free to send us an email at BZP Mendocino County at sharecare.com. And that will go directly to us. So if you have any questions or you say, hey, I would love to host a purpose workshop for my community, whether it's a civic or faith organization, we can definitely collaborate with those individuals as well. And so we're always trying to keep that fresh, keep that going, throughout the whole project. Like Michelle said, it's, the walking Moai would only be a 10-week commitment. And so there's always the next opportunity to re-engage and to have another experience for sure. So yeah, that's always a really, really great way for individual community members to get a hold of us and to engage. Yeah, great question.
The question was, are the books available locally? Some of them are. We have some, right?
If you're interested in some of the books, we have a fair number of them already in hand at our office. We are always giving away our latest cookbook that Dan Buettner and his team put together. And then another really great way actually is through our library system as well. I know I actually listened to Blue Zone Solutions on the audio app through Hoopla, through our local library system. So I believe 3 of Dan's books through Blue Zone's project are and accessible through our library system as well. So it's a great option for sure.
Yeah, and we've donated some of our books to the local library chapters as well.
Yeah, I had two questions related to some of the things that you focused on today. One was your statistics on loneliness, which I know well, and I think is increasing. But one of the things that you didn't mention, that men as a group on all the statistics turn out to be having higher levels of loneliness than women as a group. And at its most extreme, we know that loneliness and being, disconnected and cut off can lead to depression and at worst suicide. And I don't know if you knew this, but the suicide rate for males is 4 times higher than it is for females. So the question relates to, are you focusing on loneliness as it affects males? Because that's a high-risk group everywhere, and I presume it is in Mendocino County, particularly as males get older. And they find that the suicide rate for males 65 and older, which is my group and many others, is 6 times higher than it is for females of the same age. So females and males have some similar problems as we get older, but males die by suicide at 6 times the rate 65-year-old and 75-year-old and older males, which is my demographic as well, is 10 times higher. So for every woman who's 75 and older who dies by suicide, 10 times that number of males die. So I'm wondering if you're keeping statistics or you're looking at some of those differences in terms of engagement and active involvement with males versus females? That's one question. Second one is when you're talking about I know you do a lot of walking Moais. As you know, I walk all over the community. And I don't know what it's like in other communities so much in Mendocino County, but I know in Willits, walking around downtown Willits is not easy. Sidewalks are not, a lot of broken sidewalks, they don't go places. As some of you know, my wife, who walks every day, slipped on a sidewalk that was somewhat broken, broke her hip and is still recovering, so I have a personal interest. And I noticed in Willits, they've marked the main street now with bicycle lanes, and I see bicycles riding and some people walking in there. And I wondered whether you've given any thought, and I know you're going to be doing a walking community activity, and I'll be interested in that. But I thought it might be somewhat easier than redoing and creating sidewalks to maybe, some of the wider streets in Willits that could perhaps, similarly an area where you could walk, because walking on a flat surface on the street is safer in many cases than broken up sidewalks. Those are two areas that you mentioned that I want to just alert you to and see if you might put some energy into looking into those.
Yeah, thank you, Jed, for raising those two, real major concerns for sure. And we're really grateful to Lucy and the work that she's doing around the built environment piece. And those conversations are always in the works around how can we continue to improve, the built environment for safety features specifically. And yeah, I think some of the real areas where people can really voice that is when we come together for some of those walking Moais. And people really get to experience that, those sidewalks may not be up to par, that we do need to have some of those conversations. And so the more conversation that happens, the more people that we have to advocate for that work to really take place. And that's when things really do start to really increase in efficiency and actually gets things done for sure. And I would love to address this as well. I feel bad for answering a lot of these here. The other real specific issue, and I know near and dear to your heart as well, Jed, is around why is it that men struggle with that longevity question? The real important factor, like you said, from a loneliness perspective, is really trying to bring people together. And I think that's really what our Blue Zones project is trying to do, is find those key influencers, key individuals that have the right contacts in the right places that can say, hey, I'm going to be going for a walk next Sunday at a specific time. Will you join me? And that's when you can start having that relationship build, that trust factor be able to start taking place. And I know even for myself, part of my therapy is just being outside, walking with people, where you can actually ask that question, hey, how are you doing? And you're not distracted when people are answering, and you can lend a listening ear, you can know how you can support. And so statistically, I think we might be struggling a little bit on how to measure that specific element that you had asked. But ultimately, we are doing what we really can to bring people together. I think that's really the major important factor of that. Yeah.
And I'd like to add to that generally speaking, women show up more for health-related things. I think we have a pretty good representation so far of men and women in our engagement work. Can we do better? Yes, and appreciate that you're here to remind us, Jed, very much. We are doing a lot of work with our cities and unincorporated areas of Mendocino County around these walkable and bikeable community issues. And maybe Lucy would like to talk about specifically some things we're doing with Willits.
Thanks. Yeah, sure. And I'm so sorry to hear about your wife. I'm glad that she's starting to do better, and I think she's really lucky. I think you're both very lucky to have each other. So good. Anyway, but sure. So to answer your question, I think that one thing that really stands out to me, and Tina and Ryan both sort of addressed this, but what I both admire about Willits, and you're a good example of it, and I think it would be interesting to bolster is the citizen advocacy work. So Ryan mentioned that folks going, walking together and talking about it and recognizing that, there are certain aspects of living in a city that you don't necessarily just need to accept that the sidewalks are in the condition that they are. You can, citizens can advocate for those changes. So I'm glad that you're doing that. And that is a little bit of an aside to say, as Tina mentioned, some of the work that we've been doing and are doing. So we had a lot of traction in Ukiah to start last year, actually near the end of the year before last, 2021, to work with some of the city staff and city council members to implement Complete Streets practices. And it was funny, oftentimes in communities, there might be an ordinance first, and then they start implementing what was written in the ordinance. There were some folks who really wanted to be convinced that it was appropriate for Ukiah, and so we took sort of a backwards approach where we worked with the Complete Streets Ad Hoc Committee in Ukiah and provided technical assistance and encouraged Complete Streets principles to be incorporated into the road designs that they were reviewing. And as a result of that, reflections of the input that we had on designs for Clara Avenue, Dora, State Street, and I'm forgetting at least one other street.
Oh, well, we have some coming up.
And we have some coming up. A whole slew of streets.
Perkins.
Perkins, yes,
Perkins
of course.
and
Oh my gosh,
Orchard.
Perkins. Wow. Y'all cannot wait to see what happens to Perkins. It's going to be great. Anyway, so that's some of the work that we did there. And then in the city of Willits, we've been working on both providing input and having continued dialogues with folks as they update the land use element. And then also the, what are they calling it? The master planning process for Commercial Street, which is the street that's just right here, to again have those Complete Streets principles reflected in the designs of roadways. And then as was advertised in our upcoming workshops, we are contracting with this man, Dan Burden, who's a nationally renowned expert on Complete Streets policy, practices, principles, and just an all-around incredible person and a huge fan of our community. He's just great. He is going to be coming on July 21st. The initial idea was for him to give a professional development training specifically to City of Willits staff and local stakeholders and advocates to design and implement a Complete Streets policy for our city. Folks from other cities nearby found out that we were doing this and were so excited about it that other neighboring cities have asked to attend as well. And so now it's expanding to be this, gift to the neighboring communities as well. And Dan Burden feels really excited. I should be careful about making promises or quoting him out of context, but so I won't. Instead, I'll say he feels really, really excited that this is going to be an incredible opportunity to have a really very strong Complete Streets policy in Willits. And then as we move forward in implementing that, there'll be opportunities for the city to be engaged.
Are there any last questions before we wrap up?
Is Mendocino County an official blue zone yet?
Good question.
Or is that, no?
No, we are not. We are working toward becoming a Blue Zones project certification community. And so those targets that you saw, should I back it up? we need to accomplish our people, places, and policy progress measures, and we also need to demonstrate some health outcomes throughout our project. So, let's see. For the policy, as you look at this, develop and adopt at least 3 policies or plans, that's per community. So, just want to point that out. Each of those is per community. We have a very ambitious project. We've got a very competent team and a engaged community as far as our partners. So we're on track for that.
Just to clarify that community means each city.
Willits,
and also the
Ukiah, Fort Bragg, and also unincorporated Mendocino County.
I've used the word community a lot.
Yeah. So those targets, these targets, and these targets, engaging 8,458 individuals, and that's unique individuals. So what we're finding so far is that we've got about a 37% rate of folks who maybe have seen a story speech. That's what this is. So really putting out information to engage, and then they come back and engage in other activities. So I think that's a really great statistic, that more than 1/3 of people who have participated in one of our activities have participated in many. And then again, like I said, not only do we have to meet these targets, but we also need to show some health improvement through some data. And one of the ways that we collect that information is through the real age test, which we'll be rolling out in October. So if you get a notification, hey, do the real age test, that really helps us to get real information on our local community.
I guess my question is, how is the city of Willits specifically receiving your message and maybe, I mean, if it's early or not, are they open and receptive, would you say, to policy? And actually then, I want to follow this up, so I'm going to just do it all now. There's a healthy streets adoption that Willits has. It's better if we have walkable streets and lights and parks and things like this. And recently a subdivision went in on Bechtel where there was a 3-acre empty lot and somebody bought it and they wanted to put in a bunch of houses, and they appealed to the city for a couple changes. One, to decrease the minimum lot size so they could squeeze in as many as possible, which decreases open space, and to even eliminate a sidewalk on one side so that they could move the street over and squeeze in another house. Zero concern for their own policy, only bowing down to the people who are building the houses and saying, we want to do this, make this exception. Numerous people in the community voiced their disapproval of it, and the city council voted 5-0 to ignore their own policy, which is written in there, and build this road with only one sidewalk and squeezing the houses in. Anyway, to follow that, I think there's still a positive they can come because they're not selling the houses very quickly, and there's an empty lot. So when you drive out Bechtel Road, there's an empty lot. It says the houses are for sale. And I think that that empty lot could be like a garden or a park. And I think the city of Willits should buy that empty lot and turn it into a park, because there's no space for those people who are down there, which is going to be 16 apartment buildings and 8 houses. There is no walkable, there's nothing they can walk to. So I'm going to throw that out as a solution to what I've observed as Willits not honoring the awareness that they have that walkable cities would be a good idea. Because again, this is the whole thing, creating a policy and then actually getting it to be implemented are not the same thing. So my question, how receptive is Willits in this?
Yeah, Well, first of all, I appreciate you sharing that anecdote. I had heard about, this changing cultural preference for higher density housing, and I had heard conversations about changing zoning code provisions to allow for dense housing. I hadn't heard anything about the sidewalk thing, so that's interesting. Maybe we could talk later about that. But regardless, to answer your question, it depends on what the policy is, and I think the receptivity is a reflection of, of course, this assessment of like, is the community going to be in favor of this? Is it economically feasible? Is it, there are so many different things that go into their decision making around receptivity. So I would say it's on a policy by policy basis, and I also, to be very transparent, I think that there is a cultural standard in Willits, and I'm saying this as a Willits, as like the Willitsonian. I just feel like I should know what the word is for that, but as someone who's lived in Willits for 10 years, our staunch independence is one of the things that I love about this hometown. We like have this legacy of back to the landers and distrust and these, and self-resiliency, or self-reliance and resiliency. Those are things about the Willits character that make us great and incredible and who we are. And the other side of that coin is some distrust of a new program and outsiders, folks coming in. Luckily, Tina and I especially, well, all of us had built relationships within the city of Willits. And so breaking through that threshold for the decision makers in Willits to, remember and trust, like, oh, you are still my neighbor, even though you're with a new employer. I think once that trust and understanding of our organization was reestablished, the inroads have been better set. So I don't know if that's answering your question or not. I would say some individuals are more receptive than not.
That was disappointing, and it'd be nice to see, and I get the infilling issue, we need more housing, no doubt about that. And we also need to make it